I'm trying to think what I'm actually going to do with these ramblings. How they're going to be led. Right. First of all, this local enterprise partnership for East Anglia. BBC Look Norwich reported it rather biasly, and somebody stepped out that it's good for the Norwich and Norfolk economy. Oh, sorry, the Norwich and Suffolk economy, or whatever. This is the kind of bias and the kind of nonsense that Ipswich and Suffolk have to compete with. See, they put it across that Norfolk is the most important part of East Anglia, when actually it never was, and they put it across that Norwich is the capital, when actually it never was. For instance, Norwich has never actually been the capital of East Anglia. The last historic capital of East Anglia was Bury St Edmund. The last historic capital of East Anglia was Bury St Edmunds. Before that, it was Rendlesham, right, under King Ridwold, and more recent archaeological evidence shows that before so it was Bury St Edmunds. Before that, it was Rendlesham, where Ridwold had his throne. Before it was Rendlesham, the capital of East Anglia was in fact Ipswich. Hence it is the fourth oldest port in the country, and the oldest port that is post-Roman in the country. Norfolk has never had anywhere of importance in it compared to Suffolk. I mean, but the Iceni's capital ended up being Caister under the Romans, but like basically the Romans wanted them away from their heartland around the Breck, and have them somewhere that was completely insignificant. So that doesn't really count. Historically, all the places of importance have been in Suffolk: Bury, Rendlesham, Ipswich. This is a fact. See, basically, Suffolk is more. It has all the cultural things. We have the Old Festival, and last weekend we had the largest free music festival in the country in Christchurch Park. This is Kerwin Road, Stowmarket, named after the Reverend John Kerwin of Stowmarket, who invented the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do thingy with music. So we can blame him for creating one of the most hideous films ever made. Right, now what else? Oh yeah, what we usually do. Oh yeah, Lost Suffolk Villages. There is the parish church of Trimley St Martin, and follow, and there is the architecturally superior parish church of Trimley St Mary. Now, that hasn't always been the only case of two village churches being next to each other in Suffolk. There is the parish church of Creating St Mary, and follow, and around here somewhere was the parish church of Creating All Saints. Right, yeah, All Saints was damaged by a storm in 1800 and they decided to demolish it. Apparently it didn't have any foundations. I mean, like, Christ is supposed to be the foundation the church is built on, and this one didn't have any at all. So now there's just St Mary's standing, and at one time it stood next to... Right, I am now on the site of the lost church of Creating St Olaf, named after St Olaf, King of Norway, who helped King Ethelred fight the Danes in East Anglia. He also went to Norway and with a number of Anglo-Saxon missionaries to convert Norway to Christianity. And anyway, this church that was here, well, there's nothing here now, was dedicated to him. Right, okay, this is Loudham Lane, leading up from Lower Ufford, and up here is Loudon Road, leading from Petterstree. So as this is the junction of Loudon Lane and Loudon Road, we must be in Loudon now. As you can see, they in a lot here. Now, down the road here, right, is Loudon Hall. And what we seem to have here is a classic case of encroachment, where the lord of the manor looks out of his window, looks at the beautiful Suffolk countryside. Well, you see it over there. Obviously they've screened the A12 here with these trees, so obviously it isn't like it was at the time. And he would have thought, wouldn't it look nice? And then his wife would have thought, well, it would look nicer, George, if those ghastly village wasn't there. So basically he would have had the village demolished and made people homeless, and this looks like it's a classic case of it, because, well, apart from the hall down the road here, there's absolutely nothing left. Oh, well, there's Ash Abbey over here, but it looks like the encroachment to me. Right, yeah. Now, Loudon, according to the Domesday Book, had 70 households and a church. Anyway, as you can see, I'm no longer here. This is a riverside view. And alright, I'm in Melton now. Well, by the Demon in Melton. Well, am I? Yeah, just. Anyway, the other side of the river is Who. Now, we know Sutton Hoo. Apparently that was actually a village on its own at one time. And further down the river, down that way, the other side of the river, was Littlecress. All I know is they existed, and I really can't be jarred to go to them. I just thought I'd mention them. Somewhere between Martlesham and Waldenfield, that way, was Barkston as well. This is BBC Look Norwich, classically making Ipswich look crap. We're now going to talk about Ipswich Street. This is Berners Street, named after the Berners family of Wolverston Hall, which was built for William Berners, now in Wolverston. And here's Berners Hall in Wolverston. Now, Mr. Bernard just happened to have owned the big house, which is now Ipswich School for Girls. As Lord of the Manor, there was two things he didn't like. One was bungalows and the other one was pubs. So Wolverston is a village with no bungalows and no pubs to this day. I am by Richard Dykes Alexander's house. He owned all the land around here and sold it for housing on the condition that all the roads would be named after abolitionists. His daughter was married to American abolitionist William Dilwyn. Hence Dilwyn Street and Dilwyn Street West. Thomas Clarkson was a local boy, so the street looks the most impressed. Behind the church, I'm on the corner of Wilberforce Street and Clarkson Street. Clarkson was a local, well, buried in Playford Church, so the main, this is rather flash, and he was a good old boy, especially for a Whig, and Wilberforce was a good old boy too, and he was also a political genius. Eliot was a mate of Wilberforce's. He was an American abolitionist who lived in Burlington, hence Burlington Road. I really appreciate Githing Ward. It really is a lovely place to live, even though Labour treat it like with contempt and let it get run down. It really is quite a pleasant place to live, and we have the most wonderful neighbours, etc. And we have some great people have lived in this ward over the years, including the architect who designed the old customs house by the dock, and his grave is behind me. Right, right, another thing. Okay, now I think what I'll do, I think we'll you may have heard of the Aikenham burial case. Here's a cat-handed report from Aikenham. Hello, I'm on the main village street of Akenham at present. As you can see, it goes up there. The farm and rice hall over there. This lane, the right away goes across the field and onto what is called Brown Lane, which leads to Claydon. And this way, it comes across a couple of other bridleways that cross it. One heads towards Henley, and another one will get you. You can go down to Akenham Hall and then across the road on the Green Lane up towards Witnesham. I am now in Akenham Churchyard, the church behind me, as you can see. Now, you may have heard of the Akenham burial case. Now, here is the grave. In memory of Josiah, son of Edward something, who died Akenham on his 2nd birthday, August 19th, 1878. Suffer little children for, well, you know the verse, to come unto me for, right. Now if you look, there's no other graves around here. This was outside the church ground because his parents were Baptists, so he was not baptised. And that is the grave that sparked the Akenham burial case. What the Akenham burial case was basically, well, I have told you now, haven't I? Because basically there was a big hoo-ha because basically this theological disagreement concerning basically the Baptists were saying child Baptist is invalid, while the Anglicans was basically saying that if you weren't baptised as a child, you weren't really a Christian until you were baptised, so it couldn't actually be and basically the vicar actually of Akenham, who was also the vicar of Claydon, weren't actually doing anything wrong, because it was all according to Church of England guidelines at the time. So he probably would have preferred to bury the kid in here, in somewhere else in the churchyard. Anyway, but there was hundreds of people showed up in protest, and like, well, if you look at the size of the village now, I mean, it was about the same size then, so it was a bit of a kerfuffle about nothing really. Though, I mean, it was sad that the child had to be buried outside the churchyard. I think it's a lovely view of the Gipping Valley behind me over there. I'm now sort of facing towards the way to Brown Lane to Claydon. And as you can see, it's not a very packed village. I mean, there isn't actually a main road going through it, literally. And it's always been like this. So for hundreds of people to show up for a burial case, they'd obviously got a lot of their friends from Ipswich over that way. Yeah, the Ipswich turn just here on the left. Right, now keeping with graves, now Dobbs Lane in Kesgrave is named after a local shepherd named John Dobbs, right? And it is believed that in 1740, right, he lost one of the sheep in his care. Now, apparently one of the penalties for losing a sheep as a shepherd was being sent to Australia. Now, basically, to avoid a fate worse than death, namely being sent to Australia, he committed suicide. And you weren't allowed to actually bury people who had committed suicide on Holy Graves, so they stuck them on a crossroads between the parishes of Marsham, Foxhall and Brightwell in some heathland, which is now woodland, and the grave is behind me. Here. Right, now for something, continuing with the grave theme, now for something I'm sure the socialists will blame us Tories for. Keeping with graves, this is the Porpoise graveyard near one house. Now the paupers who ended up staying at the workhouse up the road, when they died they ended up in here. Now basically they used to mix up lime and wrap the bodies in lime mix and stuff, whatever, and then dump and then bury them here. They've lost the records of who's buried here, but this is where they ended up. This burial was in 1933. Have some ever, considering my dad was alive when the last one got buried here. We've come a long way. There's still some crude wooden crosses here. What's left of them, as you can see. There's another one over there. I must say it's very peaceful here though. Finishes that off. This is a riverside view. Okay, yep, right. That's all. Yep, this is a riverside view.